That's cool. It looks a lot like English. What does that mean? It means welcome back. And the language is Burmese. Yeah, that's not fair. Good job, good job. You know that in the reading that we did at conference, there were 6 dialects from Burma or spoken in Myanmar. 6 of the 30. Yeah, a lot. Good. Yeah, this is Burmese. And it means welcome back. Welcome back from what? Well, we haven't met for quite a while. Good to have you back again. This is a weird time of the semester because we're not really done, and yet there's kind of a feeling like we're supposed to be. What I mean is, after conference, there's this feeling like we're coming down the home stretch, but it really isn't the home stretch, it's still another lap. We have 3 weeks and 2 days till we're done. And so I want to encourage you to keep that in mind. Don't start sprinting for the finish line quite yet. Keep pacing yourself because there's a little ways to go yet. It will go really quickly. After Thanksgiving, 1 week, and finals. And that's it. That is the home stretch. But we're still working on that now. So stay in the race, keep pacing yourself, and you'll do just fine. I do not have a quiz per se. I would just like to know yes or no if you did the reading. So put your name and the name and the date and IWM, enter the World Mission. And let me know if you did the reading. Yes. You're reading Sarah Lanier, right? Born and Familiar. Yeah. So while you're passing those in, would somebody share with me something you've learned from that book? Yes, sir. You enjoy your privacy a lot. Yeah, that came to light in reading the book. Yes, sir. Yeah. Okay, it's hard to be introvertish in certain cultures. Which kind of cultures? The hot cultures tend to be more extrovertish cultures, right? South Africa, Brazil, Zambia. Who here grew up in a hotter climate, warmer climate? Yeah, Peru, where are they? And Arizona. Arizona is very much like northeast Brazil, hot and dry. Yeah, yeah. El Paso, Texas.
Maritime.
Okay, all right. All right. All right, cool. Well, warm climate people. Yeah, India.
Billy.
Billy.
That's cool.
Fiji. Yes. You spoke Fiji Hindi. I'd never heard of Fiji Hindi language until we did this reading. Fascinating. All right. And you cold climate people, Minnesotans, and we'll be way up north. Is it really true? Is it really true that some of you prefer the cold winter weather? If you had to choose one season, you would take the cold winter weather. That is totally off my radar. I just can't. Yeah. And I know what they say. You can put on more clothes, but the hot climate you can't. So I get that. But man, I wrestle with that. I admire you guys that like the cold weather. Well, it's coming. Your season is coming. You got both of them. And if you had to choose one, you would choose the colder, huh? Thank you. All right. What else from the reading did you learn? Somebody else, yes.
I grew up
I'm sorry, say that again.
I grew up in kind of a older,
good, good. Somebody else. What have you learned from the book?
How can you guys do this? Don't you want to get something done? That's what they were doing.
Yeah. You remember we talked about doing versus being cultures briefly earlier in the semester? Yeah. The hot cultures tend to be more of the being, they're not, and again, this is stereotypical, all right? But in general, they're more relaxed that way. They're not as agenda driven. Yeah. I see another hand back here. Somebody want, yeah.
I wonder, like that culture has been more event oriented.
Mhm. Yes, yes. So event versus clock. Yeah, which kind of ties into the idea of being versus doing. Mhm. Yeah. Thank you. All right. Anybody else? Something to learn? Yeah. All right, good, good. Yeah, beating around the bush, we would call it. And when we use that phrase, beating around the bush, we use it negatively. Like, come on, what's the matter with you? Why can't you get to the point? But they use it in a very respectful way because they don't want to cause somebody lose face. Yeah.
Remember, I told you what it was things where they say yes when they meant no. But the author said that they weren't fine. They don't understand.
How many of you came from a culture where, yeah, just one second. How many of you came from a culture where if you were asked, invited over something, the correct answer was always no, at least at the beginning? Anybody come? You would always answer no, thank you at the beginning. Right? Fiji, is that what they did? Can you explain why that is? Okay, so in some cases, they're actually hoping you'll say no, but they feel an obligation, politeness, to invite you anyway. All right? Right? Yes. Okay. Okay. So giving them an out. If you okay. Now, is it Sarah Lanier somewhere I read that in a certain culture, it's actually the third invitation that you say yes to? Is that her? Or she's the one that mentioned that? You remember what culture? Did she mention what country that was, or was she just speaking in general? Okay, maybe. Yeah, it's not until the third invitation, when you're insisting, you finally say, well, okay. And all along, the person has really wanted you to come. And if you had said yes the first time, it would have been considered very rude. Forward. Yes. Yeah.
I kind of related that to a culture I kind of like learned about. The lady I go from that culture and direct the chopsticks directly upright like this.
Mm-hmm.
That it's very disrespectful. That was like when you're in that type of culture. Because that shows that you're done. When in some cultures it is actually required, no matter how maybe have not worked before, you are required to whether or not you want to. But a friend Jason had that, they had to go to when their family members, they had to constantly eat. Just kept putting food on their plate. They couldn't,
In some cultures, there are certain ways you can communicate that you're done. In Brazil, I don't know if they do this up in the Amazon, but if you're done, you leave a little bit on your plate. When you're far down, you leave a little tiny bit in the corner, and that's it. You clean your plate like Mommy taught me to do, then you keep bringing it. And if you say no thanks, they don't, it doesn't compute to them. So I learned you leave a little bit on the plate, and that says, and you don't say I'm full. Oh, you say I'm satisfied. Yeah, if you say I'm full, then that kind of is derogatory. Full of your meal. I told a lady once that when we were serving, I said, your cooking makes me lose my appetite. Well, it was true. I get full and I didn't have any more appetite, but she was a good friend and I was able to say, Jared, I need to get back to you.
Yeah. I was wondering, because excuse me, I believe it may have been in African culture that when they were at an international meeting, one gentleman stood up and represented a group by saying that if the interpretation was done a different way, it would be more understandable to them. They had more time to think about it and piece it together. But the gentleman who was leading didn't understand that he spoke for the majority. And I was wondering, for those types of cultures, if you're not able to interact with everybody in your group, how can you ever speak for the majority? Or how can you speak for the majority in those instances?
Yeah, there's no easy answer to that question. You know, if you're speaking through an interpreter, it might be a good idea to talk to the interpreter before you speak, or you address the crowd, and ask, you know, what are some dynamics of group ministry that I should keep in mind? You know, and the fact that you're not going to relate to everybody, no matter what, and most cultures understand that, you know, that you're aiming for the majority. So I just think that probably the key is to talk to your translator or somebody who knows the culture well, get some orientation. Hey, I'm going to be speaking here. What are some things that I should remember? And I would say this too, Jared, chill when that happens. Because you're a foreigner, you're going to trip over something culturally, you know, and most of the people in that culture will understand, hey, he's a foreigner, you know, I get it. There'll always be a few, you know, that'll be upset or offended, that don't understand the struggle of trying to interact. They expect you to understand and know, and so, you know, you just have to, sometimes you just have to take a deep breath and say, Lord, you know, use me in spite of all these things. Good question. All right, hey, you gotta go on. I just wanted to interact with you a little bit from the reading. Very good book. Obviously very simple, but I think the basic premise that she gives to you is worth it. Okay, let's move on to the next question. That was part of that survey. And by the way, I reordered these questions, so 4 here is no longer 4 in your syllabus. So there's just don't pay too much attention to the numbering in the syllabus because I threw it off a little bit. Have you ever shared the gospel with an unsaved person? The options I gave you were never, once or twice, occasionally many times. And this is the way it came out. Almost half of the group said occasionally I've shared the gospel. And so here's what I'd like to do. I am going to do a little group dynamic here with you, a little group activity again. And I'm going to ask you to make your little circles again, but then I'm going to do something a little different. All right? So go ahead and form your circle. You can move your chairs around, get into a group, and then I'll explain what's next. Okay, now I'm going to do something dangerous. I want everybody to get up and move to a different group and sit with people you haven't been sitting with the last couple times. Get up. Alrighty. How are you doing? All right. Okay. If you are someone who's never had a chance to share the gospel with somebody, I don't want to put anybody on the spot. So obviously, I'm not going to ask everybody to share. I want this to be, interactive, but also sensitive to the fact that some may feel uncomfortable sharing because they haven't had a chance or for some other reason. So, just be sensitive to one another. Here are some questions I'd like you to discuss. With whom did you share the gospel? Get an opportunity, child, no, was it occasion? How did the opportunity present itself? And then how did it go? Anything happen? Was there further opportunities? Any reaction to the gospel? So just take about 5 or 10 minutes to discuss this among yourselves, the group, and then we'll get some feedback on it. All right? And online students, I'm going to mute this part of it since it's hard to hear. All right, go ahead.
You don't want to share. Did anybody mention?
Okay, online students are back. So what we're going to do is we're going to go around with the mic and just randomly allow you to share. And we'll make this quick. I don't want anybody preaching sermons here, so we'll try to make this really brief. So who would you get had an opportunity to share the gospel? And you want to tell us who that was with? Okay, who was that with? Hold on a second.
So I work at a daycare, and I got the opportunity because I had to work with the older kids, and they're at the age that they would understand. Somebody asked about the cross, so I only got a partial share with it, but they seemed kind of open to it, so I'm hoping to get another opportunity to finish what I started.
Right, good. So there's an illustration of an ongoing opportunity, which is what we really like. As much as possible, if we have opportunities to continue the conversation, then that's always positive. Who else? Yeah.
All right, so I had the opportunity to witness with my one of my managers at the store I work at. I'd take him home one night, and he asked me, why do you want to go to this Bible college? And through that, I was able to witness to him. It was just really cool to see how God provided the opportunity to get the conversation started, because that was something I was freaking out about, how to get the conversation started. Love happened.
Can I ask any results? Is there going to be an ongoing conversation?
He ended up switching stores like a few weeks after, so I wasn't able. Yeah. But no, he said he grew up Catholic or something, but I was able to put the pebble in his shoe.
And God has promised me somebody waiting at the next place to carry that on. Good. Who else?
I just remember this. This is kind of a weird one. So I used to work with a Satanist, and all his family was very Catholic, and they hated him, and he hated them because all his life they tried to force Catholicism down his throat, and he said, I don't want to do that. And so we had a lot of conversations about my faith and just religions in general. And he always said that he really appreciated that I wasn't trying to force him to believe what I believe. And I was able to move, I was really sad. I had to move away to come here, but I was able to build a much better relationship with him than anyone else ever had with us.
All right, very good. That's a unique opportunity. All right, and maybe as the door, you feel like the door might be open for further conversation down the road, will you contact with him?
I really don't know. I don't know what happened to him.
Okay, good. That might just be another example of God placing you there at a strategic moment to move it forward. Good. Who else? There you go. Not good for the mic.
Not bad.
So I went for a run there like a while back, and there was some guy that came up beside me. He was an African-American man. That's not really relevant. Anyways, we started talking there, and he said his brother's incarcerated in jail or something because of weed. And I said, oh no. So I had a track. I always have a track in my pocket. So I gave it to him, and I said, because I knew he was in a trouble spot. So I said, if you ever need anything, Faith Baptist Bible College is right here. I met him like over by the Casey's, and I said, if you want to talk to somebody there about how you can know God and find peace in Him, come talk to us. I haven't seen him since, but that was my last encounter.
Okay.
It's good.
Just,
Whoa, no, I'm sorry.
no problem. You always carry a track, just curiosity, do you leave any contact info on that track?
My church from back home, which is not helpful because that's in Canada.
All right.
I'll fix that.
Yeah, Jared.
I'm gonna give a little bit of a different story. I consider this an opportunity, maybe not one that I took fully. I was on the plane last week, and I was sitting beside a young girl who, well, not young, she was like 26. That's a girl. And on planes, I'm very, very cordial, very nice, very quiet. You know, I'm getting through the flight, and then maybe goodbye when we're done. But she started talking to me with about 30 minutes left of the flight, and I was wearing my seminary hoodie that I got from seminary. And she saw it and she read it and she said, "Oh, is that like a Catholic thing?" And it said Baptist on it, but but I was able to explain, what Faith Baptist is and why I go there. And we went further on into talking about her family and stuff like that. And, as people get more comfortable, they get a little more colorful in their expression and some stuff. And so, there's some things that you're thinking in your mind, okay, how would Christ react to some of this stuff? Because now she knows what I believe, or at least the foundation for what I believe. And the whole time I'm thinking through, how can I best behave in this situation in a way that would be pleasing to Christ? Now, whether or not I had the opportunity to share with her the gospel, it wasn't like a wide open kind of a thing. But I went away from that really feeling convicted in my ability for one thing, and then openness to share the gospel to somebody in a situation where I just really don't want to. And I got a guy back home who cuts my hair, and I have the opportunity every time to talk to him, but that's the one guy I'm most afraid of, most afraid to share the gospel with is him. I mean, for one thing, he's got sharp things near your head all the time. So I'm going back. I've already got a haircut scheduled with him, and we'll see. I'm praying that the Lord gives me, wisdom and strength to be able to actually put myself out there with these people. So,
Just curious, you're most fearful to share the gospel with him. Besides the sharp tools in his hand, is there something else about his personality or something that makes that hard for you?
Yeah, he, well, for one thing, I see him all the time, and I'm very, I've already kind of established a more fun conversation kind of a thing, and it's hard to break it down into the serious. I know that he says he's a homosexual, and that's always difficult to deal with, but one of the great things is just being able to show him first that I still love him, and establish that kind of a relationship. And he's a fantastic guy. He loves like a lot of the same things that I do, cars and stuff like that. We get to talk about it all the time. But that's what makes it really difficult, is because I know that he holds a worldview that is opposing the one that I hold. And then when you know that somebody's living in sin, it's difficult to break it down like that.
Right.
So.
Okay, good. Does your hoodie say Faith Baptist Theological Seminary on it?
I won it during the seminary day. when we were there.
Yeah, I see, and I'm guessing that perhaps that girl seeing the word seminary associated with a Catholic institution because they call their school seminaries.
And she was from Mexico.
Yeah.
So grew up with a lot of Catholicism around her.
Right. And in Latin America, even Bible colleges, evangelical Bible colleges are called seminaries typically. So good. Now you're the second one today that's mentioned, somebody appreciating not shoving it down their throat. And that's important. Remember that when we're talking about quick one opportunity, cold turkey evangelism, there is more of a tendency to shove the message down the person's throat because that's the only chance you have. Whereas if there are ongoing opportunities, it's easier to take it slowly, get to know the person, figure out what they believe, what their life is about, that sort of thing. Yes.
So I had the opportunity to share the gospel with someone at my school last year. And I think when it's someone that you see like on the daily or when you like work with them, the most important thing is to establish a relationship with them first, because a lot of people have a lot of beef against Christians just because other Christians haven't been a good witness to them, or they've just been really like hurtful and very forceful in sharing the gospel. And it's like, you can't really walk up to someone that you're going to see every day and be like, you're a sinner and you need to get saved or you'll go to hell. Like, you can't really do that. Just establish that relationship first and then share the gospel with them. And when you do that, then they know that you really care about them as a person and that they're not just another soul to you, but they're another soul that's like very valuable and like you want them to be in heaven at like a deeper level. If that makes sense.
One more, then we got to move on. Okay.
So, a lot like what Gloria said, I grew up in an area where they call it like the Bible Belt, where everybody goes to church and thinks it's a Christian, but there's nothing. And so, trying to witness to them, you couldn't outright look like you were witnessing, or they'd shut you down and say, I'm already a Christian. So it tended to be more of like a lifestyle kind of thing, or here and there interject like a little thought as if they could relate to it or something, or a concept of this one little part of the gospel. Throughout the whole relationship, when you felt the Holy Spirit, that's about as far as witnessing could go. But it was cool just seeing God open up little opportunities for things.
Good, thank you. Ironically, you might think that the more adversely different a person is from you, the more difficult it would be to share the truth. And actually, the opposite can happen. Closer somebody is, the more they agree with you, the more difficult it can be to share the gospel. In fact, if I'm talking to someone who's agreeing with me, I don't feel like I'm making progress. I feel like it's becoming more difficult because that person is not seeing the difference and emphasizing all the similarity. I believe that, I agree with that. Yes, that's what we believe also. And you find yourself almost feeling handcuffed at times because you want to point out the differences. So. But ultimately, it's the sovereignty of God, it's the work of the Holy Spirit in any situation. I'd like to keep going, but we have to move on here. These are good. Let's move on. You can stay right where you are, and let's see if I can get this to advance. Hang on a second. There we go. All right, let's move to the next question. Have you ever personally led someone to Christ? I'm not going to do this in a discussion format. You can stay where you are, but I want to discuss this with you. Here's how you answered this question. Most of you have not had that opportunity to personally lead someone to Christ, at least as far as you know. I think when we stand before Jesus someday, we might be shocked at how many people end up coming to Christ because of something we said or did, that we knew nothing about in this life. 32 of you said you have had opportunity to lead a person to Christ. Here are some of the questions I want to throw out just for our group discussion today that pertain to this. I'm wondering, what kind of person did you lead to Christ? Was it a sibling, a camper, a wanted child, a worker? Without going into any details, just shout out to me, raise your hand, and what kind of a person was it? What was the situation? Really quick, yeah. A camper. Let me excuse me, I'm sorry. How many of you have led a camper to Christ? And, okay, several of you involved as counselors or working at camp.
Okay. Classmate, all right. What grade can I ask? Are you in? Freshman, senior in high school, witness to a freshman, or led a freshman to Christ. Okay, good. How many others have had opportunities in public school or whatever to share Christ with a classmate? All right, several of you have. Right. By the way, that can happen in a Christian school too, because not everybody in a Christian school knows the Lord. My daughter is teaching at a Christian school that allows unbelievers to come, because part of their strategy is evangelism, and of course they know that they're going to be subjected to a Christian curriculum. All right, good, classmate. Who else? Somebody else? Pardon me? Derek, okay, how many of you have had a chance to lead somebody to Christ in a daycare? Anybody else had that opportunity? And of course, depending on the daycare, that can be tricky business too, because there are rules and regs that. Yours is a Christian-based one. Okay, so you have that. Right. Okay, all right, yeah, so there's quite a variety of workers there. Good. All right, what other situation, kind of person is somebody? Yeah. Okay, how many of you led a child, a person who led the Lord, or have led a child to Christ? Okay, all right, good. Who else? Yeah.
I was able to leave out from
Okay, where'd you go?
Detroit.
Mission trip to Detroit. Okay, good. Anybody here have an opportunity on a missions trip to lead someone to Christ? Okay, all right. What other scenario? Yeah. A sibling. Wow. You know, that's challenging. And older, younger? Younger? Okay. Yeah, that's really neat. Do you come from a Christian home? Your parents believers? Okay. All right. Yeah. That is really neat. How many others of you have had a chance to lead a sibling to Christ? You have. Yeah, that's tough. How many of you have witnessed to an unsaved sibling? Okay, I see more hands there. Yeah, that leading them to Christ, that is tough. Family is the most challenging mission field out there. Yeah. All right, another scenario, somebody else, different kind of situation. We've had a lot of different examples. Did somebody mention a coworker where you work? Anybody have a chance to lead a coworker to Christ? Okay. Yeah, go ahead. You got another one?
I was just going to say,
Okay, children coming to Awana, all right? And I'm assuming others of you had a chance to lead Awana kids to Christ, or Awana, or some program like that. Okay, very good. Anybody else? Interesting, yeah. Okay, somebody in your youth group, you personally led to Christ. Was that something informally when you were chatting on the side, or was that during activity, or? Okay, less formal. It's like, good. Yeah, praise the Lord. All right, anybody else? Situation. All right. And we answered this in part. Was this part of a church outreach program? Okay, let me ask two questions real quick. I want to see a show of hands. Really quick, how many have led somebody to Christ? Raise your hand real quick. I just want to get a bird's eye view. Okay, put them down. How many of you who raised your hands led somebody to Christ in a situation that was not part of a organized church program? Okay, so probably about half of you, all right? That's good. And the reason I asked that question is because we easily get locked into the idea that, you know, it's the church's responsibility to evangelize. The church has to develop programs to make evangelism possible. If the church isn't doing it, it doesn't get done. So if you have a chance, you know, to witness or lead someone to Christ outside the normal church program scenario, that's really good. And I'm not against church programs for outreach at all. We have them in our church. But I'm glad to see those hands come up saying that, you know, outside those borders, you've had a chance. How many of you who led someone to Christ, the person was not from a church evangelical background?
Okay, all right, that's great. See several hands there again. That's good. Again, sometimes the most difficult people to lead to Christ are ones who are from a church background, especially if they rebelled against it and left. And those are tough. God can save anybody, but those are some tough ones. And many of you know people like that. They've turned their back on the gospel, on the Lord, on their family, their parents, and to try to convince them is really difficult. But we still have to try. All right? And one other question. Were you the first one ever to share the gospel with this person? As far as you know, were any of you the first and only person who had shared the gospel with this individual before we led to Christ? Okay? There were 3 or 4 of you? Okay? All right. Very interesting. Because generally, those who come to Christ have had some sort of contact with the gospel previously and don't make a decision on the first time around. But that's God. We can't put God in a box, can we? He does things so many different ways. Okay. Good. Any questions or comments arise about this? Yes. Yeah, he did. Several times he would mention, I believe that, so and so is going to be saved. And I think all of us understand, he does too, that our faith can't save somebody else. But I think what he was pushing for is we give up too easily. We have to believe. We had a lady in Brazil who was the first one that came to Christ. And she had that same attitude. I am trusting God to save my family. And she never gave up. And several of her family members did come to Christ. Her husband did before he passed away. So I think you all understand that Waleed was not saying that, my faith is going to save somebody else. I think that was in conjunction with the message about letting the lame man down through the roof. When Jesus saw their faith, it was a plural statement, not just his. But we all know that a person has to exercise personal faith in Christ to be saved. Yeah. Right. Yeah, our faith comes in believing that God has ordained to use us as instruments, as vessels. Yeah, that's where we often lack faith. We feel like God can't use us. This person is not a fit for me. I have nothing in common with this individual. I think of Acts 8 with Philip and the Ethiopian eunuch. Those two guys had very little in common. Different countries, different classes in society, probably spoke different languages. It's just a very unseeming situation for someone to lead another to Christ. Yeah.
So how do you go about giving the gospel where their parents they don't
Okay, now you're talking about unsaved parents that don't approve. Can you be a little more specific as to the scenario and what context are you doing this?
So I was witnessing to one of my atheist friends because I went to public high school. You have at least a few atheist friends, and I answered a lot of his questions, and I was able to actually get some progress with him. He was like, actually makes sense. But when he went home, he's talking to his parents about it, and his parents or his mom is basically a God hater. She straight up is brutally against God. So she did not like at all that I was giving him the gospel or that I was talking about God in that way, and it kind of made it a problem because she would sort of get in between and be like, well, you can't hang out with him, don't talk to him at school. She basically was brainwashing him from birth that not to love God at all or hate God, and basically she was trying to control him in what he believed. So
And I'm guessing she thought you were brainwashing him too.
yeah.
Right? Okay, class, let's help him. Should he or should he not continue to witness to this guy?
Yes.
I'm going to say continue to witness to him. All right, and I agree with you. How you do it? If we stop just because there's opposition, there's always going to be opposition. I think we too easily stop, and I speak to myself as well. We too easily give up. And how you do it, you may switch the way you approach it, you know. That's going to depend on the situation, how God leads you. But to say, well, because the God-hating mother says no, I have to stop. If that's the case, we might as well just stop the Great Commission work altogether. So, yeah, ask God for wisdom, ask God for tender heart, ask God to change. If God is in it, He will move in the hearts to bring it past. Well, yeah.
So I have a situation where my birth mother and my stepdad are both just absolutely against God and everything. I have two sisters, younger sisters, living with them. And I am unable to share the gospel with them because my birth mother shuts it down every single time. And I guess my question is, how can I witness to them? Or where do I draw the line between actually telling them and just praying that a character testimony is enough? Because I've talked with them about spiritual things, sometimes they ask me questions, but every single time I answer their questions, my birth mom will then come in later and be like, no, like he's horribly wrong, blah, blah, blah. You know, her big thing right now is that homosexuality is perfectly okay and not sinful, and that, how dare I say that? And so she's with them, 98% of the year, and I get to see them maybe 1 week out of the year or 2 or 3 weeks out of the year. And then the rest of the year is continually fed into their lives just an absolute hatred for God. How can is there a way, an easy answer, probably not, to how I can share the gospel with them effectively in the short amount of time that I have or like in a way that they aren't so easily persuaded to turn back to hating God.
That is such a difficult situation, and others of you have been in similar situations. Let me ask you a question. Other than those 2 or 3 weeks of the year, do you have any communication, texting, emailing, calling? Okay, is that because you're not allowed to, or is that just because it's not happening, or what?
I don't have a good relationship with my parents, so they don't really want me interacting with my siblings.
Okay. Yeah, that's a tough situation. What do? You try to force it on when you get a chance? The shoving it down the throat method is always dangerous. Okay, to say, I got to get it in these 3 weeks, one way or the other. Let me ask you another question. I'm asking questions because I don't think I can give you an answer without a little background, a little context. What level of understanding does he have of the gospel at this point?
Oh, my sisters?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, my little sisters. It's okay. I honestly don't know. I know that my mom caught me reading a Bible once or twice, and I know that they've asked me questions that were kind of like, well, what about this? Or, well, what about this? And I've answered them, but then every single time, basically my parents convinced them that I was like, what I was saying was untrue, and so then they go back into thinking, oh yeah, like, Caleb's just wrong. And so in regards to what they understand about the gospel, I don't think they have any really understanding of the gospel.
It is possible that God has not chosen to use you as the primary impetus in the situation. I don't think that should be your default reaction to it. But if you're trying and you're using the open doors that you see, or the cracked doors, or somehow knocking on doors, and it's just there seems to be an impediment. It's not. It may be that God is going to use someone else. But I would not want you to stop because of that. I'm assuming you're praying for them. You're asking God for open doors, and sometimes God creates some unusual opportunities to share. I wish that you had some sort of interaction with them, some sort of communication the rest of the year. That would really be helpful. But if you're not able to, then any chance you get to express love to them, Because they know what, I'm assuming they know what you believe. You've had an opportunity to share the gospel with them. If you show them love and you show, others in the family as you have opportunity, the love of Christ, then God can use that to make an impact. Obviously, love without content of the gospel isn't enough to save someone. We all have to remember that we are not necessarily the A to Z of somebody coming to Christ. We may be the Q or the X or the C somewhere along the way. And so don't give up. Keep praying and ask God for opportunities and ask God to bring others into their lives that would have a chance that you might not have because of the circumstances. Yeah, I'm trying to avoid giving you this pat, textbook answer because it's not there. It really, you just have to devote it to the Lord and be sensitive to the Spirit. I don't know if that helps at all. I'm just trying to be careful. Okay, answer your question. All right, thanks. Let's move on to something a little different here. Do you ever struggle with guilt for not being a more faithful witness to Christ? And here's how you answer. Most of you said occasionally. A good number of you said often I struggle with guilt for not sharing Christ. I want to talk to you a little bit about this. Before I go to the next slide, let me ask you, and it's totally voluntary, those of you who have struggled with guilt, and most of us have to some degree, can you tell me just in one sentence, what's the essence of your guilt? What do you think is generating that feeling of guilt? All right, just real quick.
When I hear other people talk about how many people they have led to the Lord.
Okay, comparing yourself with others who talk about how many they've led to Christ. Yeah. Gotta go from zone to zone here. Yeah.
I think people that have maybe to share the gospel, had an extravagant transformation in their life where maybe you have not had.
Okay, all right. Somebody's had an unusual situation in their lives that you haven't had, so you feel crippled to some degree in your efforts. Right. Somebody else. I'm not trying to intimidate you. But, all right. All right, I'll get there. What was it that generated that feeling of guilt?
I would say I've been in situations where I know it was what I was supposed to do, and I just couldn't do it.
Okay, all right. Not being able to build up the courage to do it.
I'm very timid when I have to talk to new people, and I'm afraid of overstepping. So, not spiritual life. If I had a better spiritual life, I am definitely afraid of what other people think of me and think of me sharing.
Okay, all right, good, yeah. This is an oversimplistic statement, but I'll say it anyway. If you feel like you can't be a witness until you've grown to a certain level of spirituality, chances are none of us will ever witness. We're all in this process. Yeah.
So I shared earlier how I like to try to build a relationship first, but sometimes I worry that I'm running out of time, so not really trusting God's timing and feeling guilty that it's not going quicker.
Okay. All right. Sometimes we're not sensitive to what God is doing. We see it as we see it. As things aren't unfolding the way we think they should, then we tend to feel guilty. Let me throw this up here for you to consider. Do you feel guilty because you are not being obedient to God's command to witness, or because someone else is outshining you as a witness for Christ? A couple of you have mentioned this. I really believe that sometimes guilt is generated through comparison. I know somebody else that's really being bold and really being effective and just seems to be winning a lot of people to Christ, and here I am. When I was in high school, I was dating a gal who was attending a church that was really, really big on evangelism in the sense of going out every Saturday and hitting the streets and witnessing and trying to get people to pray a prayer and receive Christ. And I would call her every Saturday. My parents let me call her once a week. I saw her in school too, but I was allowed to call her once. On Saturday, I'd call her, and I always dreaded that phone call because she would go out in the morning with her youth group, and they'd spend a couple hours in the streets. And then I would, would ask her on the phone, so how many did you lead to Christ today? 5. The next Saturday, how many did you lead to Christ today? 3. And next week, 6. I'm sitting there thinking, where does that leave me? And I was supposed to be the leader in our relationship, as the guy. Here's this girl that's just way, way out, so far ahead I can't even see her, in this. And of course, looking back now and knowing more about the scenario, most of those 5, 3, 4 that they did, cold turkey probably really weren't true salvation. Some of them I'm sure were, I'm not going to doubt that. But most of it was just trying to get some, you want to go to heaven, here's what you need to do, can you pray a prayer with me? And they pray and check it off, there's another one. But I remember feeling overcome with guilt. And I went out, I was going out on Thursday nights with my church and trying to be a witness. And all of you know somebody, it seems like every person they touch turns to a salvation decision. You just think, how do they do that? And sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes people who are like that tend to give others the impression that everybody should be like that. And if you're not, something's wrong with you spiritually. And I want to be really, really careful. I thought about this before class today because I don't want to say something I shouldn't say to you. But here goes. And I hope I can communicate what I want to say. Guilt is a tool that God can use to direct our lives. I mean, if we are being disobedient to the Lord in any area of life, the Spirit of God does administer guilt. He works with our consciences. He's recalibrating our consciences when we come to Christ. But at the same time, guilt can be abused by people or by you who's experiencing the guilt in a way that can actually be damaging to your spiritual growth and service for the Lord. We've all heard of what we know as guilt trip preaching. Okay, again, I'm not against that point blank. I do think that sometimes pastors need to get in the pulpit and say to people, listen, give them a spanking. I think that happens, right? But using the scriptures to bring guilt and conviction is very, very sensitive business. And you guys are going to be pastors and teachers. Be very careful how you address this subject, because guilt trips can be a manipulation to get you to do something that somebody else wants you to do. And when guilt trips become manipulative, they are sinful. Okay? That's why I'm trying to be very cautious in the way I speak to you this morning, because the Spirit of God does deal with sin, it does convict us, and does make us feel guilty. But sometimes we as believers misapply or misunderstand the concept of guilt. And I believe that one of the reasons why so many young people are graduating from high school and leaving the church and leaving their homes is because they have put up with this guilt thing all through their young lives. And they've tried to conform, tried to obey, and they're just, and by the time they leave school, they need a relief. They get out of there. Now, am I justifying what they do? No, because something has gone wrong in the past. Okay, I'm just saying that sometimes, if you are guilt-driven in your service for the Lord, you will be hampered in your service for the Lord. Guilt is a tool in the hands of the Spirit of God, but guilt should not be the overarching, dominant motivation for serving God and being a witness for Christ. What should be? Loving God first. Jesus said, if you love me, keep my commandments. What does he mean by that? If you really love me, then the fruit of that will be obedience. And I think we get the cart before the horse. We try to use obedience as a way to make us love God more and love others. We have it backwards. And that's why you keep hearing at this college, develop your relationship with God, make sure you're nurturing your intimacy with Jesus Christ. Because if you don't, if you try to become what your curriculum, your professors, what this school is trying to help you become, without that element of intimacy with Christ, then guilt-motivated service for God will be the natural result. Because you know what you're supposed to do, you have the education, you have all the baggage, you've memorized the verses, you have no excuse, right? You know it. But if the love and intimacy with Jesus isn't there, then guilt-driven ministry will result. There are guys in the pulpit today who are guilt-driven preachers because they are guilt-driven themselves. And they pass that on to their congregations. So again, please don't walk out of here saying I'm against the Spirit of God using guilt. He does. Okay? But ultimately, it is love, compassion, love, and devotion to your Lord Jesus Christ that should be the main driver in our service for God. Caleb?
I don't struggle with guilt for either one of those. I struggle with guilt sometimes because I've had more opportunities. Well, no, I mean like because sometimes like I feel like I'm bragging because I've had so many opportunities to go out and witness and things, and so sometimes I like almost feel like I shouldn't share as much because then I want to share that I've shared with somebody and then out of excitement, and then it comes off as, oh, like I had so many other opportunities than this person, or like I've led more people to Christ, and it's so I almost feel guilty about that.
Okay. All right. I understand what you're saying. I feel like you're bragging about. And again, this is kind of the flip side of the second one. Someone else outshining you. You feel like you're on the outshining side, and but I'll just be real frank with you. Again, if your heart is right, you really are taking joy in being able to share Christ, then your real issue there is wanting to please men, wanting to please your colleagues, and wanting to make sure that you're on good footing with them. Okay, we all struggle with that to one degree or another. All of us have some element of men pleasing in our hearts. Okay, we just do. We're a body of Christ, and we want to be getting along well with others. So I appreciate your being frank and candid about that. That's another way of looking at it. Yeah.
So hearing the joy about how someone led someone to Christ makes me feel joy as well, even though I didn't participate in it. So I feel like joy comes around anyway.
I really like that statement. You can feel joy when somebody else has had an opportunity to share Christ and win someone to Christ. That's really neat. And that's the way it should be. What happens so often is when somebody else shares an opportunity, you feel guilty, like, how come I'm not being more faithful? How come I didn't have that opportunity? And really, true Christ-likeness says when somebody else has been blessed with this opportunity, I should be able to rejoice with him. That's really good. That's the way it should be. All right. This is one of the reasons I'm spending some time on this subject, because I personally have really wrestled with this. I gave you a personal illustration from high school, but I really believe that Satan uses this to discourage us. He is a master of discouragement, and this is one of the biggest tools in his toolbox for discouraging us in the area of evangelism. Comparing ourselves with others, okay? And when we're not faithful, when we do miss an opportunity, feel like God's gonna, I blew my chance, now God's done with me. Look, if you ever attempted to think that because you blew it, God is done with you, just take a few minutes to read through the Old Testament. I'm being facetious. But what is the story of the Old Testament? The overriding story of the Old Testament is a God who persists with a rebellious people. I'm not encouraging you to persist in rebellion so that God can persist in being faithful. I'm just telling you that when you think that because you blew it, God's done with you, the fact is God hasn't even gotten started with you. I mean, God is molding and shaping you. He's after you. He's pursuing you. And so I just want to encourage you, if you missed an opportunity and you need to confess to the Lord, say, Lord, I'm sorry, I was a coward. Help me to be bolder next time. Okay, don't just drag that around like a ball and chain. Confess it, ask God to use it to help you be bolder next time, and move on. Move on. Because this guilt thing is a tool that Satan has used to bring a lot of believers down to the point where they just give up and say, it's no use even trying. And that's not, and don't think that Satan isn't going to do that in Bible college. You know, something because you're in Bible college, you move beyond that. That's not true. Bible college students can struggle with guilt more than anybody else because of all the baggage they have and the need to, they feel the need to be using it. Let me just use a little illustration here. I learned to drive in a 67 Chevelle. That wasn't as nice as this one. This is this really hot car, but it was actually the same color. It was a 3-speed on the floor. Are you guys into cars? Yeah, 67 Chevelle. It was a cool car. Hey, just curious, who here learned to drive on a stick? Yeah, okay, some of you did. Yeah, okay. That was really helpful because we went to Brazil, almost every car there was a stick. So it was a 3-speed on the floor. And I remember one time, I couldn't get the car started. I was at my friend's house. So his dad brought his car on. He had a really nice car. And he decided he was going to give me a push. So he could push start, of course, with a stick. That's easy, right? You just stick it in second gear and pop the clutch and off you go. So he gave me a push and he backed off. Obviously, he said, okay, go ahead, pop the clutch. Pop the clutch. Stop. Okay, let's try it again. He comes, eases up behind me, gives me a little kick, going up to about 15 miles an hour, backs off, pop the clutch. Did this about 3 times. And finally, he gets out of his car and he walks over. He says, you have the ignition on? You can pop the clutch all day long, but if you don't have the ignition on, it ain't gonna start, right? Did you ever do that? That was on him. So I turn the ignition on, he gives me a little push, off I went, feeling like an absolute idiot. And I like this illustration because I think it describes sometimes what happens when that's what guilt-driven service for the Lord does. Okay, guilt-driven, you start somebody, and for a moment it looks good, and then, if the ignition, and I'm using ignition to refer to an intimate relationship with Christ, okay, if we are not maintaining that, you'll spend your whole life jump-starting, stopping, jump-starting, stopping, jump-starting, stopping. And again, I think that's why a lot of young people end up saying, good riddance, they leave home. I don't want this anymore. I am tired of this jump-start routine. See, so I know it sounds like I'm preaching this morning, and I am. I guess I am. But I'm just telling you, this is so important. Everything we're talking about in this area of evangelism is key to your relationship with Christ, first and foremost. And I hope that will be helpful to you. Okay, this is where we're going to go next time. I'm going to actually give you a few minutes free. I think we have advisor chapel today, right? So and we need a couple minutes to get our chairs back, but come back next time. We'll start working our way through these questions. All right, thank you very much.